Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with special guest Deirdre Scaggs, who's here to share with us her new book, Simplicity and Excellence. Elizabeth Kremer, from Beaten Biscuits to Shaker Lemon Pie. So Deirdre Scaggs is Associate Dean at the University of Kentucky Library's Special Collection Research Center. She also serves as director of the Wendell H. Ford Public Policy Research Center, and she co-authored The Historic Kentucky Kitchen, Traditional Recipes for Today's Cook, and Our Rightful Place, A History of Women at the University of Kentucky. So welcome to the show, Deirdre Scaggs.
Thank you so much for having me.
What an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. My goodness, what was the inspiration for writing this book?
I think the inspiration really comes from my childhood and how important sharing family meals were and the relationships and community and memories that were established because of those things. And as an archivist, I started to get really interested in collections that had handwritten recipes in them. And it just made me think that in this instance, that was a really tangible way to see history come alive if you were to take those recipes and to cook them in modern times. And so that led me to publishing my first cookbook based on handwritten recipes. And also as an archivist, I work with a lot of collection donors and families with their personal papers. And I was meeting one day with two women. One of those women was Evelina Settle, and Evelina and her sister had written a firsthand account about their mother, Elizabeth Kremer. And Evelina was making an addition to the manuscript collection that we have at the University of Kentucky Library's Special Collections. And she knew about my other book, and she really wanted to see something happen with this memoir. And she felt that she had taken it as far as she could, and it wasn't going to go any farther. And that day, she just asked me if I thought I could do something with it. And I told her that I would do my best to do just that. So that's really where this book started.
So was there a lot of research that was done for just the writing process of this book?
Oh my goodness, yes. A variety of research, actually. So because Elizabeth lived in she lived in New York City, she lived in Louisville, Kentucky, in Cincinnati, Ohio, Lexington, Kentucky, Cynthiana, Kentucky. And then at Shaker Village, there was a lot of research that I had to do on the businesses that she worked at. There's great stories in the book, but a lot of those stories needed the facts added to them. So I did a lot of archival research and newspaper research and research in Elizabeth's personal papers as well, which was tons of fun.
I can imagine, and just the wealth of information that this book has between pictures and recipes. It must have been just fun diving into all that.
It really was. It was easy to just get lost in different, going down different rabbit holes and learning more about, whether it was Prohibition in New York City or the 1937 flood in the Louisville and Cincinnati area. And, if I was trying to find the name of a market, then I would just get completely distracted trying to learn more about that particular market or a bakery. It was a lot of fun.
It's so nice to see handwritten recipes because that's almost kind of like a thing of the past, being able to really kind of dive into that. Did you try some of the recipes yourself to say, hey, okay, this is really, this is making exactly what it's supposed to?
For this particular one, I made ones that I was just interested in eating. For the previous book, which is the Historic Kentucky Kitchen, all of those recipes were tested because they did come completely from handwritten sources with very little instruction. I did do some tests if I had to fill in some of the recipes that are in Simplicity and Excellence, but Elizabeth was an amazing cook, of course, so I really trusted in her process and her descriptions.
Well, I can understand there's so many here I've been checking out myself. So, what's one of the favorite ones that you've made so far?
It's not really, it's something that I've made a number of times, but I'm just a sucker for pies. And so any of the pies, but I love the chess pie, of course, and the shaker lemon pie. I don't think you can ever go wrong with shaker lemon pie. Oh, and the oatmeal pie. So again, any of the pies, I'm gonna always be wanting.
I'm right with you on that one. And so, oh my goodness. So, as you were collecting information for this book, how was it with the family's oral history and the archival material that you received?
The interviews that Evelina and her sister Pem had done, really, I think, bring the book to life. It's those stories that I think at least made me feel so connected to Elizabeth and to the family. It was amazing to be able to have them, to be able to ask questions like, did I make the right inference here? Is this correct? And so I was really fortunate to be able to do that. And then with the archival research, one of the really interesting pieces of her collection is when she worked for Wheeler at the Canary Cottage when she was in Cincinnati. He would send memos every day, and they could be about any number of things. Maybe the cost per chicken had gotten a little too high and he wanted it lowered. He was super particular, but it was just a fascinating look at the restaurant industry at the time, the type of foods that were being served in restaurants at the time, and how he and Elizabeth worked so hard to be successful, to have an amazing restaurant, but one that operated efficiently and in a cost-effective manner without sacrificing um, quality for its customers. And so that documentation, I think, is just fascinating. And then, of course, the handwritten recipes. That just goes without saying. I wish there were more, but the ones that are there, I treasure.
Well, that's easy to understand why. When you were doing all of your research about Elizabeth, was there something that surprised you?
The thing that I was most surprised about was that for a woman who was a working woman during her time, which was rare in that era, that she continued to work after she had her first child. She didn't stop. She continued. I mean, she got a lot of help, but she continued with her career and her passion and what she wanted to do. And she did a lot of that, also having a long distance relationship with her husband. So she was just, I think, so strong and independent. So it's the way that she broke norms, but in a almost a nonchalant way. Like it didn't seem to be something that, she thought was unusual, even though it was very unusual for the time.
She was quite the rebel. I love how in the book you share a story about when she was a kid and she took the horse and buggy in front of the church. And I thought that was so funny. Being able to unhook the animals and go taking them for a joyride.
Yeah, she seemed to be quite a character with a great sense of humor.
So, how would you say that her upbringing in Kentucky influenced her cooking style and later on her career?
Well, she was born at the very end of the Victorian era, and you could still see that sort of influence in people's daily lives. As someone who also grew up in rural Kentucky, um, we still had like proper Sunday dinners. And so for Elizabeth's family, meal times were that was the time that the family got together. That was when they communicated with each other, but it was also very formal. They had to follow all of the rules of etiquette, um, which was something that Elizabeth instilled upon her daughters when she had them. So I think that's one way that she was influenced, that sort of that sense of ceremony, the proper way to act, the proper way to set a table. It was formal, and that standard of excellence, if you will, really informed how she ran her restaurants. I think you certainly see it in the way that she planned for the restaurant at Shaker Village. She had lots of um, unwavering ideas about silverware and milk containers and sugar packets. Those didn't have a place on her table. So I think that was a huge part of it. But I also think, one of the great things about growing up in a small town is that sense of community. I think that she extended that sense of community to the people that worked for her. She cared about them. They were a family in their own sense. And I think that certainly that was instilled in her from her upbringing.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Deirdre Scaggs in regards to her new book, Simplicity and Excellence. You've been listening to Moments with Mary Ann. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Are you an author, speaker, or expert who is looking for more publicity? Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up for free interview requests from shows looking for guests. Radio Guest List is the #1 free booking resource for radio, podcasts, and TV talk shows who are looking for experts like you right now. Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up today to get the visibility you deserve.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special. When you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
It's one thing to become attached to your perfect home, but what do you do when that home becomes attached to you? A family in dire need of a fresh start, a mysterious house tied to the past. Buried deep within the foundation of the old Far Hill Manor lies a centuries-old secret. Dark forces or something stronger just waiting to be discovered. Caretaker, a supernatural thriller by breakout authors R.J. Halpert.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Mary Ann. We're here today with special guest Deirdre Scaggs, who's here sharing with us her new book, Simplicity and Excellence. So what did she go through in order to establish her restaurant, The Trustees Table?
Oh, goodness. Well, I mean, first she had to be convinced to actually start it, which took more than one attempt and a lot of encouragement from her daughters and other people. She was a recent widow. She had been retired for many, many years. Um, so, but I think that what you learn is that she approached this new chapter of her life with that same high set of standards that she put upon herself, but also what she wanted that restaurant to be. And it sort of started as a small sandwich shop so they could, test out some ideas, plan the menu, plan for what the restaurant was going to be. And Elizabeth herself did tons of research about the Shaker community, going through the Shaker cookbooks and testing and trying to come up with recipes that would honor the tradition of the Shakers, but appeal to a wide variety of people, but also things that could be made efficiently and economically so that it would be successful. But she planned everything about that restaurant. She planned the uniforms that the servers wore. She specifically selected the china for the restaurant, the serving dishes, in addition to how the menu in the beginning was handwritten. So she really planned every single detail of that restaurant.
Now, did her other travels, like her time on the West Coast, and I know she traveled to Cuba as well, did any of these travels that she took in places where she had residence have an influence in her cooking as well?
For sure. She noted that it was really when she was in California that she got to experience fresh fruit, the kind of fresh fruit, that they have in California. In Kentucky as a child, which is another similarity to my childhood, her family had citrus fruit shipped in from Florida, which we did too. And, that was really my first experience with like an in-season orange. So while she had that, it was that fruit in California that went on to influence the meals or the menu items that she would have in her restaurants. She always wanted to have some sort of fresh fruit for its brightness and flavor. So that she was definitely influenced in California from that. And then when she was in Cuba, one of the things that she did was try all the different kinds of food that she could. And the recipes that she came home with that, she continued to cook for her family later when she had children. You see gazpacho and other items that a lime drink that she had when she was in Cuba. So she was definitely influenced by the foods around her wherever she went.
And there's so many amazing recipes in this book. I have been going through them and going, okay, well, wait a minute. I've been there. I know where that place is. So it's interesting because I think people can really resonate with this book.
That's what I love about food and food history because I do think it does connect so many different people and our memories and feelings about food. So I'm glad that you think that as well.
Well, and to kind of dovetail with that, how do you think this Elizabeth story really resonates with like contemporary readers, particularly women in the culinary industry?
Yeah, it was so great to be able to have Weta Michael and Sarah Bradley contribute to this book. I've known Weta for a number of years, but I didn't know Sarah Bradley, but I really wanted all of the contributors to this book to be women. And, in the conversations that I had with both Sarah and Weta, and I think you see it in their forward and afterward, that it absolutely resonates with them, as women chefs and restaurateurs. I feel like they still have seen a lot of the same things that she did. And, she was sort of a trailblazer for her time.
Is the Trustees Table restaurant still around?
It is still around. They, of course, have changed many of the menu items, but every restaurant has to, of course. But they certainly still have many of the longtime favorites on their menu. They still do many of the things that she did, making fresh pickles. They still raise a garden, and they use that garden when they do pickle their vegetables and for their menu creations. And that's something that Elizabeth established at that restaurant, was the garden. And that was also something, even if she couldn't have a big garden, she always had parsley growing or mint growing. And then during World War II, of course, she had a victory garden. But back to your original question about the restaurant. Yes, it's still there. And it's still a fantastic place to go. And I think I'm really looking forward to people who go to the restaurant now, that they'll really have the opportunity to learn about the woman who started it. And, I think that a great restaurant can certainly turn a place around. And I think it absolutely contributed to the success of making Shaker Village a tourist industry, and the one that it is today.
Well, and such a rich history that goes with it. With this book, I think is a nice pairing to be able to have this book, read it, and then go to the Trustees Table restaurant and be there. I think that's such a great way for people to experience history firsthand.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
My goodness. I mean, we could talk for hours. I just love this book. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about your writings and your work?
The University Press of Kentucky has more information about simplicity and excellence. My other book, The Historic Kentucky Kitchen, they are both available at large bookstores, Amazon, of course. Simplicity and Excellence will be available at the gift shop at Shaker Village. So I would also encourage anyone to take the time to go visit Shaker Village. You can spend the night there, have a wonderful meal. It's beautiful, and really, be able to taste and experience that history firsthand.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. My pleasure.
Well, thank you, Deirdre. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Simplicity and Excellence. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Mary Ann, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Mary Ann is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Mary Ann will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmaryann.com for more information.